Okay. Thank you for the entertainment. Um, all right. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the City of Bloomington Committee of the Whole to order. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Walsh. Councilmember Bowen.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Becker.
Here.
Councilmember Urban.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Crable.
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Here.
And we got Councilmember Emig. Mayor Milwaukee.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Do we have any public comment?
We did not receive any emailed public comment, nor did anybody register to speak remotely or in person.
Okay. Thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, which only has one item. And is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll move to approve the
Okay,
consent
motion by
agenda as presented.
Councilmember
I'll
Brennan,
second that motion.
second by Councilmember Urban. And roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Councilmember Walsh.
Yes.
Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Urban.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
okay, thank you. We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is so the regular agenda. We have a presentation galore today. And we're going to start with item 5A, a presentation discussion on Connect Transit's budget as requested by the administration department. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and to the community. This is a night of presentations at this committee of the whole. The first one is Connect Transit, the executive director or general manager. I think, David, is your title. You're here with some of the board members, a lot of your staff, and I just ask that you come up to the podium and present the Connect Transit fiscal year overview to council. Thank you.
Well, Mayor and members of the council, thanks for the opportunity. Again, my name is Ryan Whitehouse, Chairman of the Transit System, and thank you for the appointment to this to serve in this position. We appreciate it. Also want to point out Trustee Linda Foster, another Bloomington appointee, and then the staff, like City Manager Hale said. Gleason, I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry. And that's way back. Wow. Anyways, I just want to point out, David's going to talk about the details, but Linda and I are here to really say thank you for your support of Connect Transit. You know, this year we're celebrating our 50th year in service, and I believe that we are one of the strongest points that we've ever been. We're financially strong, our system is strong, our buses are there, and we have a lot of things going. David's going to go into that detail. I do want to point out, you are going to see a little bit of an increase here in the budget. I hope you understand that the board and staff worked hard to try to keep that number as low as possible. But as I think you understand, with cost of parts that are going through the roof and labor and our great employees with those contracts, you'll see a little bit of an increase. So just keep that in mind when you see these numbers. And David's going to give you the details, but we'll be around afterwards too to ask any questions. So I appreciate your support of Connect Transit.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all of you. What I'd like to do is just explain how we create our budget. And if you wouldn't mind changing the next slide. Our organization remained relatively flat. We did add some positions, mostly in operations, and that's to support our growing service needs. You'll see in a few minutes, our ridership continues to increase year over year. And as a matter of fact, our Connect Mobility ridership is significantly higher than it was even pre-pandemic. So we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to be popular with the people who need us the most. Next slide, please. Right now, our services are comprised of fixed route service, which is the big bus service that runs on a fixed schedule and a fixed route, and the Connect Mobility service, which is service for people with disabilities, those who are eligible under the Americans with Disabilities Act. To date, actually with this budget, we will have 12 battery electric buses, and you'll see how that's really impacted our budget as I present our operations budget. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our performance year to date, our fixed route ridership is up 19.6%, but it is still just about 80% of our pre-pandemic ridership. So I believe that that's attributable to a number of things. First of all, we did have to cut service this year. We did not have enough bus drivers to maintain peak service. If we had that peak service, that 30-minute service rather than the hourly service, I believe that that would have been a more attractive option to many people. In addition, I think that people are still a little concerned about the COVID epidemic, that which until just recently was still a thing. So we hope to introduce some new services next year who will bring people to our fixed routes and grow this ridership percentage. Next slide, please. Our Connect Mobility, again, for people with disabilities is 109% of our pre-pandemic levels. So people are using this much more frequently. And I believe part of that is because of the One Fare for All, something that was approved in 2020 that reduced their fares from I believe at some zone fares were over $4 to $1.25, same as our fixed route ridership and everyone else. What that did is removed a barrier and allows people to travel more frequently. We also expanded our service area to include all of the city and the town borders. So rather than the ADA requirement of only operating 3/4 of a mile around a fixed route, we're serving the entire area for Connect Mobility, also providing more opportunities to ride. Next slide, please. So the services that we have budgeted for next year are our current fixed routes, only one slight change on that. Expanded Connect Mobility, you saw that our Connect Mobility ridership was increasing significantly. We think that it's going to flatten out. We believe that there's only so many people in town who will be riding, and just based on current trends, looks like a 12.5% increase is realistic. We're going to be introducing a new service. It's an on-demand service called Microtransit, and we actually have a brand name for that we'll be rolling out as we roll out the service later this spring or early summer. And then continued van pool service. We also hope to announce a partnership in the van pool that will bring people into Bloomington to work. It's not taking people out of Bloomington. So that's an exciting program for us, and we hope to roll it off soon. Next slide, please. So our cost drivers are really based on the services that we have scheduled. If you pick up any public timetable, you can see how many hours and how many miles or how many hours we have budgeted. Hours are driven by the number of days we operate, and the routes operate different hours on different days. So the fact that next year is a leap year added a day, but most of the holidays are on weekdays, so that actually reduced weekdays. So it's a very odd situation, but that's really how we start our cost drivers. Next slide, please. You can see all of our routes are listed on the left-hand side there, and the service hours have changed slightly. Now, service hours equate directly to labor. So when we talk about the service hours, the scheduled service hours in particular, that equates to how many drivers we need. And you'll see for next year's budget, it's increased 7.6%. That's really a function of the new microtransit service that we'll be providing. We significantly reduced the Sapphire service. We're currently in public engagement sessions to reduce that. We've made a proposal to the board to reduce those hours and miles. It was not a productive service, but it is a valuable service to West Bloomington and Normal. So we'll continue it just on a smaller scale. Next slide, please. The next is the service miles. Service miles equate directly to parts, fuel, maintenance, those types of things. You'll see our service miles went up just slightly, 3.5%. Next slide, please. We've had some positive changes since we installed our solar panels. Our cost of utilities went down significantly. The solar panels power our facility, and in addition, we added some LED lighting. So you can see a 40% decrease in our facility electric utility cost. We've also replaced 20-year-old buses with clean, modern electric buses, and they have some great features. We enabled Wi-Fi on those buses, and they have USB chargers on the seats, so something that's more attractive to passengers. Next slide, please. We have some challenges, as Ryan mentioned. Labor costs continue to go up. We had some shortages, and we've actually taken some initiatives to bring a lot of drivers back in. We've increased the starting wage. We've offered a sign-on bonus. We've improved some benefits. So those are all things that really have attracted drivers, and we should be able to roll out our weekday or our weekend service and our peak service again very shortly. Next slide, please. Our total operating budget, as you can see, we're proposing a 7% increase. The majority of those costs are in insurance, because we're replacing 20-year-old buses with new 2022 buses, and the value of those buses is considerably higher. Our insurance increased 35%. Bus repair continues to go up due to parts. Fuel and lubricants, though, if you look at that, that only went up 2%. We actually captured the electricity for the buses in that line item because that's technically the bus fuel. And you can see as a 2% increase, we've really been able, even though we've expanded the number of vehicles, we've been able to keep that cost much more in line. And then labor and benefits continues to increase. And as I mentioned, we do have some additional labor. Next slide, please. The local operating revenue, you may have seen something of this already. With the 2019 Connect to the Future recommendations, it was recommended that the city contribute an additional $150,000 a year for 2 years. That was done in fiscal year 21, and it was also proposed again in fiscal year 24. So the city is meeting its obligation under the Connect to the Future recommendations. The reason for that, though, is that we're able to leverage those funds against our state funds. So a $500,000 investment between the city and the town enables us to capture about 1.4 million in additional state revenues. Next slide, please. So you can see our operating revenue, how it's laid out. Our revenue matches our expenditures, and we're able to do that because of some flexibility in federal funds, as well as the contribution you are making. Next slide, please. We do have some planned capital projects. Next slide, please. And as I'm not exactly sure what all of you spoke about in your budget presentations, but this year we are not asking for capital funds. We've been very successful in our grants and our ability to capture those grants. So we're not asking what would have amounted to just over 800,000 in additional capital funds. In the past, we've always asked for about 5% a year. And again, this year we're not asking for anything. Next slide, please. Again, thank you for your support. I know I went through this relatively quickly. I was trying to be cognizant of your time. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Well, thank you. Not asking for extra money is a great way to end, the program. So,
You caught that, huh?
So I'm going to turn it over to council for questions. Councilmember Bolin, and then Walsh and Emig.
Everybody should know I always ask questions about Connect Transit.
Of course.
I'd like you to explain or describe how the micro transit will work.
Sure. So microtransit will be a smaller vehicle dedicated to one particular zone, and we're working on identifying those zones now, and we should be making a recommendation to the board in May as to where that zone will be. The vehicle operates within that zone on an on-demand basis. So there's actually an app, a cell phone app that somebody can use to hail the vehicle, similar to an Uber and a Lyft, or they can call into our dispatch center and have the vehicle dispatched to them. The board has not yet determined the fare, but the microtransit would then pick somebody up at their home or near their home and then transport them to the fixed route bus to continue their trip throughout the community. So it depends. If a trip is within the service zone, then it would be a door-to-door trip for the most part. If it's outside of the service zone, they would be asked to transfer to a fixed route bus to get to their final destination.
Yeah. Okay, so if I wanted to, I don't have service in Ward 2. So if I wanted to go from my house to Tom's Diner. I could get a door to door.
If
With
it's
one,
all within the
with
same,
one fare,
if it's within the service zone.
with one
correct,
fare.
Correct.
Okay. That sounds like a good deal. Well, I'm sure you're gonna figure this out, but driver salaries, the cost of buses, all that is increasing the budget, sort of. I mean,
Correct.
you're gonna have to buy more equipment and then more operating expenses for that
Correct.
service. Okay.
So our
Okay.
buses are paid 80% by the federal government and 20% by a combination of state and local funds.
Okay. And do you have an idea how much it's gonna cost or?
Each bus right now is just over $1 million for the electric buses. Unfortunately, those are the only ones that we can buy right now. Those are the
Well,
ones that,
that's for the microservice?
no, this is for the larger
Oh,
vehicles, the big
okay.
buses.
I'm still within the
Oh,
microservice.
okay. For the
Okay, sorry.
microservice, sure. For the electric vehicles, we're talking about 220,000 about. If we get gasoline vehicles, which I believe will start with gasoline, those costs around 125.
Okay. And you still might have challenges with labor
Well,
because
the-
you're gonna have to add more drivers.
Correct. The interesting thing about microtransit, though, is they don't need a CDL. And they'll still need to comply with all the same drug requirements and things like that, drug testing. But they don't require a CDL, and we're trying to create shifts that are a little more flexible so that someone who wants to drop their kids off to school and then work during the midday would be able to do that. Students would be able to do that from the universities. So we're trying to make it a little more accessible, but also recognizing that if somebody comes on board when they're 19 years old and they're not quite in a trade yet, they've chosen not to go to college, this is a career path for somebody. They can go from the microtransit service until they're 21, they can get their CDL and then start using the fixed route bus. So we are attempting to create a career path with this
Okay.
new service
Okay, that sounds good. So it's like Uber on steroids.
to a large degree.
And then I guess I have some questions. I think it's it's about the budget. On slide 13, it's a little bit confusing. If you want to, if you can go back to. Contribution, city and town
Oh,
contribution.
okay. Is that for the capital?
No. There, that one,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, can you explain the red 760
Sure.
in FY 2021?
Yes, so the recommendation by the Connect to the Future group was made and approved in 2020. The city met its obligation in 2021 with the first 150,000.
Okay.
The town at that time chose not to do that. So the next year, and I'm not speaking for the city, but I'm assuming that since the city saw that the town didn't do it, they also didn't do it. The following year, 2021, the town submitted the entire 200,000 rather than doing 100,000 over 2 years. They put it all into one. And then this year we requested the 150 from the city.
Okay. Okay.
So now it's where the Connect to the Future group had
Okay.
recommended.
Okay. Well, I mean, this was a little bit confusing. I wanted some clarification mainly, I mean, for me, but also for the community.
Understood.
Okay. And how is the census going to change the formulation for funding? Because it's going from 55-45 to 60-40.
It's my understanding that that primarily impacts the capital funds. We haven't really worked that out for the operating funds yet.
Okay. Okay.
So from a capital perspective, that will change. That was actually another reason for us not requesting capital funds this year,
Okay.
is that the city of Bloomington would have gotten a double hit. And we didn't think that that was fair.
Well, I'm glad to see that Bloomington is growing more than normal, but that also would mean that, you know, we might need a little bit more service and we'll be putting more money in. So I look forward to having more service. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you. I think we are next to Councilmember Walsh and then
Thank-
Emig
Thank you, Mr.
and
Mayor.
Crumpler.
Real quick, just looking at your numbers here. And it looked like you're about 190,000 riders per year on the fixed routes. I think that was the number I saw.
About 1.9 million on the
Oh,
fixed
that's
routes.
1.9 million.
Yeah.
Okay, that feels much better than that. I saw that number. I was like, only 190,000. It seems really low. And that makes me feel much, much better. My question is, and I love the micro transit idea. And I guess my question is, have you considered, I'm going to say expanding out the micro transit? Because we know there's routes in which they aren't very heavily utilized now. And would it be better, when you look at the resources, just the physical resources that go into building one of the large buses, and then the capital resources that go into building one of the large buses, and then the maintenance required on a large bus and the licensing, et cetera, the insurance on a large bus. Have you considered on some routes going, you know what? Maybe a large bus doesn't work for this route at all. Maybe we need to decrease the large bus routes. If the micro transit really takes off, that seems to me that micro transit may be the future for a small town for busing, for mobility.
That's an excellent question. We're actually in the midst of a planning study right now. The first phase of that study is to identify the proper microtransit zone based on the demographics of the particular area, lower income, availability of vehicles, things that you would normally think of. The second phase, though, is to take a look at our fixed route service and those underproductive routes, as you mentioned, to see if they could be either straightened out to make them more productive, make them more attractive to people, or replace it with microtransit. So that is something that we are looking at. To me, the system actually works together. Microtransit pulls people from the neighborhoods to the straighter fixed routes, if we can straighten them out and make them more attractive. So big picture, I think it's going to be a combination of things. It's really the future of public transit here.
Okay, and with the micro transit, and would we still be looking at needing connect mobility for ADA in the areas where the micro transit is able to service, or would the vehicles for the micro transit be ADA compatible?
Another excellent question. And yes, as a matter of fact, within the zone, people would be able to travel on the microtransit using a mobility device such as wheelchair. The Connect Mobility is actually based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we do need to provide that throughout the system, and we can't force transfers.
Okay.
So the microtransit, if it's within the zone, will actually relieve some of those, the growth in Connect Mobility, because people would be able to travel within the zone if they use a mobility device. There's also no eligibility requirement for microtransit, but they will be fully accessible. They'll be ramp equipped and have spaces for 2 wheelchairs. We are looking long-term to see what that impact is going to be, and then we can manage demand much better on the Connect Mobility service.
Okay, have you had a conversation with your neighbors about maybe converting, see if Amazon will let you convert some of those vans to a little micro transit type of vehicle?
No comment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, we're off to a roaring start in terms of time. So we're going to have to extend for a little bit. So we're going to do maybe 5 minutes, right? We have 2 more people that need to speak. And then after that, we won't allow any more extensions of time, right? Okay,
Sounds good.
okay, awesome.
I'll make the motion to extend for 5 minutes.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Okay. Do you have who motion and seconded?
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney. Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker.
Yes.
Councilmember Urban.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So now we're going to Councilmember Emig. You have 5 more minutes,
Thank you, Mayor.
not just for you.
Not just, oh, don't worry. Many of my questions are asked, so thank you for the presentation, David, and thanks for your work, Ryan, and others on the board. the microtransit concept is really appealing to me as well. I thought when you originally proposed that, it was going to be subsidized in part by local employment or employers, I should say. Is that still part of the?
That was actually the van pool program. So
That
the
was the
van
van
pool
pool,
program, and it is very confusing because they're both operated with smaller vehicles, vans for the most part. The van pool program is run by Enterprise, Commute with Enterprise. And they provide the vehicles, they provide the insurance. All we do is subsidize that particular service. And it's intended for people in the rural areas to come to work in a shared ride, so to speak, to Bloomington and Normal. So it was intended to support the employment growth in the area. We just haven't gotten there yet. We haven't found one partner, committed partner. So we'll be putting some resources into further education and development of that.
Great, thank you for clarifying. I just want to acknowledge too that I think Connect Transit was incredibly responsive to a lot of the concerns that residents and that many members of this council had in regards to where we were going a few years ago.
Mm.
And I think that you are definitely addressing our priority of coverage.
Mm.
If anything, even more so, that's more of a priority than ridership. And I think that's what this community values. And you can see that through the Connect Mobility numbers going up. And I appreciate that. And I think for sure it's the right way to go. And finally, I'm going to ask the question about that transit center. Can you tell us anything about plans going forward?
I'll let city manager speak about that.
Sorry, Tim.
I'm going to jump in and that's a topic for next week.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so that's, okay, sorry, daydreaming for a second. This was so riveting. Councilmember Crumpler, and then
Thank you.
Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, David and Ryan. Always great to see you and board members. I was really impressed in your presentation with the kinds of incentives you're trying to offer to hire additional drivers, certainly signing bonuses and better health insurance. Could you talk a little bit about, how many, when you're trying to get to 100% of the staff you need, where are you? And sort of a timeline about how you're hiring new folks to drive the Connect Transit buses?
Sure. 105 drivers would really be our ideal number, and that would keep our overtime low, cover all the service, without also we have something called guarantee time, meaning if they don't reach their 40 hours as negotiated, they get paid up to 40. So that's the ideal number. Right now, we're just short of that. We're having classes every month. Our last class was, I believe, 7 individuals, of which 5 passed. The one before that was, I believe, 5 individuals, of which 2 passed. So, we do lose about 50% of our trainees. So we don't want to obligate to provide service and then be in a bad situation again. But it looks like we will be recommending to restore some service at the beginning of summer and then some more by fall, because we'll continue to have these classes rolling every month.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to briefly put in a plug for the possibility of transportation for people from rural areas coming into the community for medical treatment. I don't know if that's already a possibility or what, but I know that I know that there have been lots and lots of instances of people who are having to make really hard decisions between medical treatment that they need, being able to pay for gas to get themselves into town, and paying their groceries, paying their utility bills, that kind of thing. And so when I heard you mention the vans for, shared vans for rural areas, people commuting to work, it just leaves me wondering if there's any possibility there for increased services for people coming from out of town.
We are the urban provider, and there's a rural provider called Showbus, which serves McLean County and 6 or 7 other counties. Showbus is tremendously understaffed. and under-resourced. So I think that that's really where a lot of the concern, getting people from the rural areas into the urban area comes from. There's also kind of a gray area around the city and the town that neither of us can serve. So we can only serve up to the city and town borders. They tend to serve the smaller towns and bring them into the city and the town. But there's a gray area that we need to address. So we have recently asked the McLean County Regional Planning Commission to begin researching that, to study that, to see what the potential would be, and then how we could actually bridge that urban rural gap. Because there's not only a gap in funding, but the state and the feds recognize us as two completely different funding sources and entities. And neither the two shall mix. So it's a challenge, and it's a challenge that's not just faced here. It's a challenge faced nationwide right now in the rural systems. But I certainly do appreciate your concern about that and everyone else's concern. That is something that we do need to address.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our Connect Transit presentation. Thank you, David. I think we'll see you again next week, right?
I believe so.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So our next presentation is the item 5B, a presentation and discussion of the Bloomington Public Library expansion and renovation project update as requested by the Bloomington Public Library. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for some comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and to the community. Just providing an update on a very important and exciting project for the community. With that said, I'll turn it over to you, Jeannie.
Thank you. And I do want to recognize that Library Board President Julian Westerhout is here as well. And I'm sure he can help me answer questions later on. So I'm pleased to update you on this project. Next slide. Throughout the whole process, we've tried to develop practical designs focused on truly meeting the community's current and emerging needs with flexible, forward-thinking spaces, addressing population growth in our aged facility by focusing on education, innovation, collaboration, and access. So just a really quick recap, what we're adding. We'll have on our first floor, 2 large children's programming rooms, a discovery zone for interactive play, 3 children's group study rooms, a sensory-friendly room, wider aisles, more accessible shelving, a nursing nook, and a drive-up window. Next slide. On our second floor, we'll have a computer lab to help inspire workforce development, an innovation lab, a 2 recording studios, 3 large meeting spaces, 6 group study rooms, wider aisles, and more accessible shelving. Next slide. So here's our timeline. And last March, we authorized a contract with the lowest bidder, which was Femley Dickerson. And they've been great to work with. And now we are in our first phase, which started last April and will run through this summer. And that's renovating the west half of the building and adding 20,000 square feet to the west side of the building. Then we'll move into phase 2, which will begin right away in late summer of this year, and then we'll end late of 2023. So we should be done with this expansion and renovation before the end of 2023. With our project taking approximately 19 months, there has been some flexibility to absorb the long lead times that the construction industry is seeing. And we've been able to stay within a month or 2 of our original timeline. It is a phased project to maintain service, and our staff have been very creative with the space that we do have, partnerships with community organizations to offer almost all of our services that we offered before the project. And next slide. So this just shows where the construction is right now, the gray area. So it's taking place on the west side, and we are living in the east side. Next slide. And this is our second floor. So again, the gray area is the construction zone, and then the white is where we're occupying. And then for phase 2, we will flip flop. Next slide. So some exciting construction pictures. So up in the upper right corner, you see the rendering, and you can already see that taking place. So this is if you were standing at City Hall or on East Street, looking at that new expansion area. Next slide. This is on the southern part of our building, and this will be the south end of our children's service area. Next slide. And this is looking from the second floor down into our large lobby area that we'll have, really welcoming people into the building. And you can see the door to the south side, the south entrance, that will be the parking lot. Next slide. This is an 8-person conference room that will have a nice view right into that lower lobby area again. And this is our community rooms. They will have movable walls. So you can see up at the top, there's some large steel beams. That's where the movable walls will be. And each community room will be the size of our former community room. So we're getting 3 times the space, and then it can be reconfigured in different ways. So either 1 large space or 3 smaller rooms, or various combinations of that. Next slide. This is on our 3rd floor. We have a partial 3rd floor that we're adding to capture new space. And this is a staff meeting room is what you're seeing, and a nice view to City Hall and the police department. And then this is just a little bit of the steelwork that has been put in place that will be holding our HVAC equipment on the roof. And that we'll see a large crane, hopefully the end of this week, to move that equipment on top of our building. We really have appreciated the local support that we've received for the project. One fundraiser was to allow everyone in the community to get involved. People could donate $1, and we would add a Lego tile to this mosaic picture of the completed building. And a couple weeks ago, we were able to complete this, and that raised a total of $12,300 for the project. Next slide. This is a picture of what our donor wall will look like in the expanded library. We'll recognize donors who have contributed over $500. And we currently have 80 donors that will be recognized at this level. Next slide. During the project, our moving bids came in over $85,000 over budget. But again, we were able to think creatively, and staff put in a lot of hard work to pack our own materials and greatly reduce costs. And so this brought us to an amount under budget for our moving costs. Furniture costs also experienced some escalation from our initial estimates due to the current market that we're seeing. But outside of those 2 things, overall costs have come in fairly close to estimates, which is excellent in our current climate. We also found out during the project that several other libraries did not receive their matching requirements for the state grant that we received. So we will actually be receiving additional funding from that state grant. Ultimately, our project budget has increased by 1.42% since the council presentation in March of 2022. But with our extra revenue, the project is fully funded. And that's all I have.
Actually, before we go to questions, I just wanted to sort of convey the board's appreciation for Jeannie and Caprice Prochnow and the rest of the library staff, who have been doing a really exceptional job in managing this very complex expansion, and really doing some pretty amazing things to keep this both within a reasonable overage. That's a very small overage, I think, given everything that's been going on, and on a timeline. So, yeah, I think with a different staff and different leadership, this project would be nowhere near at the stage it's going to be, and I don't think it would be anywhere near as great as it's going to be. So on behalf of the board, I'd just like to recognize Jeannie and the staff at the library.
Thank you. Do we have questions? And can we get staff to put up the time on? Awesome, thank you. Go ahead.
I just have
Councilmember.
one question. You didn't mention anything about the parking. Is that also?
Yeah, that's happening.
Okay.
In fact, if you go, there's a beautiful view from the Osborne Room at the police department.
Okay.
And a little bit less beautiful view from City Hall because you're not quite across from it.
Okay.
But yes, it is definitely happening. It looks a bit of a mess at the moment, but there's concrete and steel going in. And in the next few months, I think that's going to be a pretty dramatic visual change.
I'm going to throw something out there. If there's a possibility for mural or something, you might want to consider it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, thanks for this presentation. It's really exciting. It's been exciting to see things happening over there as I've been in the neighborhood. A question that comes to my mind, it seems like a while back when we were still sort of in the depths of the pandemic and people's attention was on things that can be done outside of enclosed spaces. I recall asking if there were any plans to create any kind of meeting spaces on the outside. And I'm trying to remember what your answer was then and to get any kind of an update now.
Sure, we do have two patios actually on the outside of the building. One is on the east side and one's on the north side. And those spaces will still be part of the building. So the east side patio will be accessible from a door just to the right of what will be the teen zone eventually. And then the north patio, the two are connected, but the north patio, there will also be a door from one of the meeting rooms directly out to it. So hopefully there'll be opportunities for indoor, outdoor programming. Now, when I say that, it probably is two things going on at the same time. So like if you're thinking in terms of kids events, maybe a couple stations outside and a couple stations inside. It's not a huge wall that opens. It's a single door that goes between the two spaces.
And will those spaces be open to the public from the outside? I mean, like during off hours, that kind of thing, or?
We have it gated right now. And so I think our plan is to keep it that same way. But usually what we did before is during the seasonal months where it made sense to have that patio would be accessible anytime the library is open.
And Wi-Fi, would it have Wi-Fi?
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
And
And
one of the
seating,
things I think that you'll notice is when this is completed, that those spaces become much more obvious. I know in the old library / current library they were sort of a hidden mystery. Very few people knew they existed.
Yeah,
So
you had to walk through a hallway to get to them before.
you sort of had to walk through a space that looked like you shouldn't be there in the previous design.
Yeah, but during the pandemic, we did turn on our Wi-Fi, usually people use it on the south side of the building in the parking lot. And so that's on 24 hours a day. So we'll continue that.
thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Bowen.
Yeah, with the basin that's going to be put in behind the library. I know that's not library property per se, but could that also be used as an extension of the library for outside activity?
We are excited about that and we have been involved in those discussions. Craig Schunkweiler has involved me in some of those conversations.
Okay,
So
good,
we've been happy to
good.
be a part of that.
Good, thank you.
All right, well, sounds good. Thank you very much and great job and looking forward to D-Day, when we have a ribbon cutting. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is item 5C, a presentation on the O'Neill Park and Pool Project status as requested by the Parks and Recreation Department. And City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and to the community. Another exciting project. Eric, if you would step forward. Eric Veal is the Parks and Recreation Director, and he's got an update for this project as well. One thing I want to say, and I know that, this is in Eric's presentation, but I wanted to recognize Eric because he's not going to recognize himself when we talk about the appreciation, the dedication, and just, something that is so big for the community. And from my vantage point, the relationship with PJ Hare at the very highest level. And I know that Eric is going to recognize those that are in attendance, but this is a relationship in the past, very much appreciated currently, and we know that we're going to do things in the future as well. So thank you. Eric?
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor and Council. Glad to be here tonight to talk about this topic. I'm going to share an update of the amazing O'Neill Pool and Park project. I want you to know that this is for the future generations, as it says on the slide. We have prepared a visual through photos for those of you who may not have visited the site recently, but I'm going to go through some talking points here first. This project is a true recreational gem being built on the west side of Bloomington for this community. And please remember, this is not just a pool project. This is a park rejuvenation with a pool and slide as its primary focus. Tonight, with us are some of our hardworking team members that are working on this project from Parks and Recreation. I would like to recognize them if they just wave their hand. Mr. Mose Ricky, our Assistant Director. Mr. Derry Carrick, our Parks Project Manager. Ms. Nicole Culbertson, our Aquatics Manager. And Mr. Dave Lamb, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Parks. Also with us tonight, as Mr. Gleason mentioned, is 3 members from the PJ Hare team. Mr. Paul Bright, CEO. Mr. Colin Logue, Vice President of Bloomington Normal Operations. And Mr. Dave Wilson, Project Manager. We've enjoyed working with them, and I think the product that we create in the end is going to be great for this community. And we appreciate you being here this evening. In our photo presentation, you will see an amazing amount of underground utilities, piping, and more that once finished, I hope you never see again, or we'll be having a problem. We will also see construction of the filter building, the pool equipment, the separate 2 bathhouses, family-friendly changing lockers, locker rooms, accessible restrooms, lap pool, slide tower and slide, and the spray park in construction. Items that you won't see tonight, though, because they're not yet ready for photos, were completed, are the expanded parking lot, the skate park, the community room, concessions, concrete around all the pools, the main pool at 0 depth entry, and a lazy river. The lazy river, as a reminder, though, will be the first one for the public in Bloomington Normal, so we're excited about that. While the original targeted opening day of Memorial Day 2023 is not going to be met because of a variety of factors, including manpower, supply chain, and economy, we are expecting to meet our budgetary commitments for you, City Council. We have even received an additional $200,000 Century of Good grant from State Farm for landscaping that was not in the original project. We also have funds already set aside through the Boys and Girls Club for when we do open for pool passes and scholarships. So August 31st, 2023 is now the anticipated substantial completion date. What does this mean? This means that we anticipate contractor required site work to be completed along with city occupancy inspection and the Illinois Department of Public Health inspections completed. Then following this is the owner installed landscaping, which would be finished by September. And we are holding off on that because of the planting season. We don't want to put in new plants and then they die in the heat. When reviewing this project timeline with our partners, we did try to improve our completion date prior to August. We determined that a few weeks of increase was not going to increase the pool season. Overtime on this project was also discussed. However, the decision was made that for you guys, fiscal prudency would supersede minimal time increases. We have worked together across our city team, our contractors, our architects to make this get done right. Meaning the community will have a new recreational amenity to cherish and will last for future generations, just like the original O'Neill Pool, which lasted 45 years. We will plan a celebration this fall to show off the pool to all the community when we are able. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that council residents and Bloomington summertime visitors, just because this won't be open this summer, Parks and Recreation has several additional affordable options like holiday pool, 3 free splash pads, 3 golf courses, an ice center, public special events, 39 parks, and an AZA accredited zoo. And this summer, we plan to keep our family-friendly pricing the same at the Miller Park Zoo, even though we're going to open a new modern South America exhibit, once again, thanks to the help of PJ Hare, who's working on that project too. So we do also want to recognize that there has been massive support from the neighbors in the neighborhood for this project. I even heard, didn't see, that they were bringing donuts and to the trailer for the people that enjoy that are working on the project. So that's great to know. So if I could get on to the visual presentation, slide 2, there you go. This one you've seen before. This is construction begins. Nothing too exciting there. So let's go to slide 3. All right, now we're getting vertical. A lot of our stuff has been underground work, but the construction of the slide tower, which is now 30 feet tall, is going to be seen more prominently if you go by the site. The filter building there with interior pumps, pipes, and tanks is on the upper right. And we have underground filtration and holding tanks that you see below. On slide 4, please. This is interior. Slide tower stairs are in progress on the bottom 3 photos there. It was quite dramatic to see the crane out there as it was operating. And as you see, there is the base of the splash pad. Obviously, there's no features on it yet, but once those features get on there, it'll be much more exciting to view. Next slide. Thank you. This one is the exterior and interior views of the filter building. Well, that's not exciting for a participant. It's pretty amazing to see how much work is put into creation of all the underground systems. The foundations for the bathhouses, admissions and concessions and community room are on the lower right. Next slide. Thank you. This spring, due to weather, we've been able to accomplish more, and the construction workers weren't as miserable as they might have been in previous years, which I hope was a plus for them. But the most exciting thing to look at, and I appreciate the photos, which are courtesy of PJ Hare, some of these, is the 250-foot long yellow slide with all the twists and turns. Families and kids are going to enjoy that when we do get up and running. Next slide. This one's kind of dramatic. This is an overhead drone photo, also by PJ Hare. On the left is above the filter building, and you can see all the holes and designs that are dug for all the trench work and for all of the piping that needs to go down there. On the right, you get a feel of the site. The splash pad is there in the forefront, and that will not be in the fenced area, but everything else will be within the fence of the pool. And once it all gets completed. Next slide. Here's another one, I believe, of just digging one of the pool basins. I'm not sure which one. The one on the right is actually, we're not quite to the finishing stage clearly, but we are getting more complete of the lap pool. And that was the one on the right. Next slide. That's on the left is the interior of the filter building with the sun coming through the open door there. Well, these guys were being a little chilly in the winter. But on the right is a very dramatic photo of the new slide with all the twists and turns. And last slide. And we kind of start where we finished before. You guys were there for the groundbreaking ceremony. And there's the reasons why on the right that we're doing the project. I want to applaud the council again for allowing us to continue with this project during a pandemic. And I hope that as we complete this project, whatever date that may be, that the community will take pride in all the work that we've done that you've put forth for us to challenge to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate the presentation. I think City Manager Gleason has some additional comments he'd like to make.
I was, just before we turn this over to council, I just had a couple of additional things to share. This is an exciting project for the community. You know, it's worth the drive by White Oak Road to take a look of what's occurring in the community, just as the library is in the previous presentation. And I don't mind sharing, you know, how did we get to this point to where we are not opening in Memorial Day this year? And quite simply, we lost 3 months last year, May, June, and July. Because while we identified infrastructure on that site, we did not realize how shallow the infrastructure was. So we needed to take additional steps to protect that infrastructure. And there are a number of things that have occurred along the way. The fact that this is still going to come in under budget in a very specialty type of construction, when we're talking about aquatics, it's amazing. And while the community is going to have to wait one additional season, this fall, we're already planning some sort of ribbon cutting, a celebration, not just for the neighborhood, but for the entire community. So definitely more to come, definitely something to celebrate, and definitely something to drive by and just take a look at what's coming to the community. So thank you, Eric, and back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have a couple of questions, and Councilmember Ward to start with, and Councilmember Urban.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. This isn't a question so much as just a comment to say thank you for your transparency on the whole thing. Would we have liked to have this open this summer? Of course. And life happens. It is what it is in that regard. I think that people understand that and accept that, and frankly appreciate doing it right. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right, and not just slapping something together. And I think that the neighbors that you mentioned, I appreciate the shout out, honestly, to them for bringing donuts and things like that. They've been committed to this for the long haul, from the long haul. They've, you know, for years, they've been committed to this, showing up at community meetings, that kind of thing. So thank you for the transparency all along the way.
Councilmember Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for this presentation, and of course, thank you for attending the council meeting this evening. My question is, what is going to be the result of financially towards the city of not being open? What kind of impact for not opening on time will that have financially?
We will save money.
I need a little more.
Okay. So we had budgeted to have the opening this year. It's not going to happen. A pool, while we intend to break even on our first year, we were budgeting for the fact that we didn't know that that would happen. We're not sure that it will happen, but with the amount of revenue that we were going to bring in, that we anticipated, that we predicted with the help of the architects, we won't be bringing in the revenue, but we won't be having the expense of the pool operation going on. The pool operation is the largest expense. So the construction will still be going on, so there won't be pool operation expense, even though we won't be having the revenue.
Okay, will there be any, just one,
Yeah.
maybe more questions. Will there be any, when you're saying that we're gonna possibly get this up and running in late August, when is the normal closure for pools, or will there be some time at the end of the season where it will be operational or partially?
We are going to hedge our bets and hope that that is possible. I can't tell you that for certainty. The reason why saying that we would be open is hard because we won't have the number of lifeguards needed to open the pool safely within IDPH rules. We would have to hire the lifeguards now, have them all on staff all summer long, doing nothing to make sure that we had them there. We have holiday pool. We could close holiday pool and bring over some lifeguards, but there wouldn't be enough to have this operation up and running. You might be able to get a shift, but you wouldn't be able to have the full operation up and running, which is what everybody would like.
Okay, very good. I think that's all my questions. And again, thank you very much. I'm very excited for the pool to get open next year.
Councilmember Bowen.
Me?
Yes.
Uh,
That's you.
Thanks. Yeah, this is exciting. It's very impressive what's been done and what it's gonna look like. Hopefully the splash pad maybe can be open at the end of the summer. Have you calculated or figured out what kind of fees will be, like the cost of pass for family or individual?
Sure. I would prefer not to give you an
Okay,
exact number because
that's fine.
we're not putting them out this year
you can-
because we're gonna
you-
do it next year now.
You can share it next year, but as long as you're working on that, thank you.
Oh, most definitely. And I do want to answer your question if you may. So the splash pad, assuming we get done on the timeline that I mentioned with the help of the guys behind me, the splash pad would then be open. Our typical closing date, which can vary by weather, is about October 15th. So if we get the project completed in August or even in September, the splash pad could be open this year up to around August or October 15th. So there will be things to do, just not necessarily in the pool area on a regular day.
Thank you. Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment on the concept of maybe opening anything beyond the splash pad, late August, early September type of thing. And I hope that spending those natural resources of filling a pool with water, filling the lazy river with water, for maybe a week or 2 weeks worth of swimming activity. I hope that we look at that and just think that that's not a good use of resources. I mean, you fill the pool with water, then we've got to fill, we've got to use chlorine. We've got to do everything along with it to make sure it's sanitized. And I hope that there's not a plan, besides, making sure the pipes don't leak, to fill the pool in the lazy river. So thank you.
So thank you for that. Just so you know, we will have to fill and unfill the pool. Not sure how many times, a couple times, at least for IDPH. So you will see it go up and down in addition to your comment. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Councilmember Emig.
Thank you for the presentation. This is quick. Many residents have asked, so I have to ask, will there ever be a dog park at this facility?
It is possible. It'd be over on the, I'd say the northwest side if it does happen. And it is in what I believe is considered phase 2. So phase 2, we're trying to finish phase 1. But the nice thing about a completion of this project is, especially with other grant funds available right now, that would be easier for us to get funds, at least through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources right now, to possibly do phase 2 that we weren't eligible for this first phase. So that might help with that and the other things that we have in phase 2.
I'm glad to hear you're looking at IDNR as a possible funding source. And I want to thank you as well for your transparency. It's appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. Great job, everyone, especially given the circumstances, and we definitely look forward to another ribbon cutting. And this gives me a little bit of time to work on my 6-pack too, so. Right. So we're gonna move on to item 5D, which is a request from the staff to the mayor to work on his 6-pack. No, not sure. Presentation on the American Rescue Plan Act disproportionately impacted small business rehabilitation grants, the ARPA, socioeconomic nonprofit grants, and the Affordable Housing Rehabilitation Grants Program in furtherance of the ARPA as requested by the Economic and Community Development Department. And City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and to the community. May 1st was the deadline that we've commented to, many times in the past taking tonight, using tonight as an opportunity to just update a lot of the same information, and we'll turn this over to Melissa Hahn, our Economic Community Development Director. Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, and Council. I appreciate this opportunity to come before you tonight and just give you an update of where we are with the grant programs through the American Rescue Plan Act funds. As you're aware, on December 5th of 2022, an ordinance was approved establishing 3 grant programs. Next slide, please. The first program being the Small Business Rehabilitation Grant Program. This will help those disproportionately impacted by COVID. These grants will be available for those who are small businesses. They do have to meet the definition of the Small Business Act. They'll be eligible for up to $45,000 per applicant. The rehabilitation grants can be used to rehabilitate commercial property within a qualified census tract. Next slide, please. This is the map of the qualified census tracts within the city of Bloomington, and they will have had to have been in operation in one of those qualified census tracts on or before January 1st of 2020. Next slide, please. All of the grant information is currently available on the city's website. They can go to bloomingtonil.gov, go to departments, economic development programs and incentives, and the applications will be available May 1. These grants for the small business will be awarded on a first come, first served basis, and there's been $1,443,462 allocated for these grant awards. As I mentioned, with the information that's currently available on the website, individuals can go and see what the requirements will be, what they'll need as part of that application. So we did send out notification this afternoon to all of those that were registered and through our Gov delivery system that we have. So we sent out notification to a little over 1,000 individuals today. So hopefully that'll give them some extra time to be ready for when those applications become available. Next slide, please. The next program were the nonprofit grants. Those grant awards will be limited up to 2 grants of $250,000 and 3 grants of up to $150,000 per recipient. That will be the maximum amount. Any remaining funds will be allocated to other grant applicants. The nonprofits must serve Bloomington residents with an annual income at or below 300% of the federal poverty line. And they must be used for needs that have been identified in the consolidated plan or the community health survey. Next slide, please. For these grant awards, once again, will be on a first come, first served basis. They do have to be serving residents of the city of Bloomington. And the total award amount available is $1,021,731. Once again, all of the program information is currently listed on the city's website. They can go to departments and then Community Enhancement Division. Once again, these applications will be available May 1. And so all of that program information is currently available for them to know exactly what they'll need in order to complete that application come May 1st. Next slide, please. So the third program was the Affordable Housing Rehabilitation Grant Program. This is for eligible applicants that have an annual household income at or below 80% of area median income. They can receive up to $45,000 or less. The grants will be used for single family homes or rental units that are located within the regeneration area as defined by the city's comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And this is a map of the comprehensive plan. And that will be available linked on that site as well. So individuals can know whether or not they're located within the regeneration area, and they can always reach out to the office as well if they have any questions. Next slide, please. Total funds allocated that are available for these grant awards are $1,021,731. Once again, these will be awarded on a first come, first served basis. I will preface that by saying, though, we plan to have one point of entry for these housing rehabilitation grants because they are so similar to our other grants that we provide through CDBG, IDA, and LED. Our plan is to determine what programs we can layer. Some programs we can use other federal funding, some we cannot. So for those that qualify, we want to make sure that we get the most impact for the funding that we have available. So if there's an opportunity for someone to receive a rehabilitation grant through this program, as well as lead remediation, we want to make sure that we're providing as much assistance as we can. Once again, all of the information that's needed for the grant application is available on the city's website. Once again, under Department Community Enhancement, and those applications once again will be available May 1st. Next slide, please. All of the contact information for each one is also provided on each one of those pages. The phone number is available, as well as questions can be sent to the community development email. And if someone wants to be registered for any grant awards that we will be sending out notification for, they can do that from the city's website as well. They can receive either text or email notification. So I always encourage individuals to get registered for that. That way they can receive notification, whether it's CDBG or IDA or John M. Scott or our Rust grants or Funk grants or anything else we may get along the way. And with that, I'll open it to questions.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna start with Councilmember Crable and then Ward and then Bolin.
Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate the presentation and glad that we're starting this in May. It's only a couple weeks away. When you say first come, first serve, are the applications going to be completed online or in person?
All of the applications for the Small Business Development Grant will be submitted online. The nonprofit grants will be submitted online as well. And then for the rehabilitation grant, we will take those online or in person. If someone wants to come to the office and complete a paper application, they can do that as well.
So I guess, how do you determine who's first?
They'll be time stamped.
But they can't apply before May 1st. So I guess whoever gets there at 12:01 or 12 o'clock would be the first on the list, right? That's kind of how it'll work.
Yes, so they'll be time stamped. And then if somebody wants to come into the office, as soon as it's completed and received, it would be time stamped there as well.
Will there be council involvement? Doesn't sound like a council involvement in selections of the nonprofits.
No, they would just be based on the eligibility criteria.
What is the definition of a small business under the SBDA? I try to quickly find it. And is there a employee number that's part of that definition?
Yes, it is no more than 500 employees.
Okay, so it can include pretty large small businesses, right?
Mhm.
And then with regard to the grants, how will they be paid? Let's say you're awarded a business grant, right? Do they get the money up front, or do they have to pay for it and get the grant at the back end?
So for the small business grants, they will be awarded to the applicant. As long as they meet the eligibility criteria, they will have to provide the bids for the project that they're looking to complete, as well as any other additional funding. So say if they're bringing in bids for a project that's going to be 100,000, they would also have to show what other funds would be utilized to make sure that the project is successfully completed. Upon that, it will be awarded to the applicant. Same for the nonprofit grants, that those will be awarded directly to the agency. There will be some monitoring and there will be some follow-up needed that they will have to provide, just showing the applicants that were served. For the rehabilitation grants, we will follow our normal process where we actually reimburse the contractor. So we have contractors that meet the qualification based on our other programs that we utilize for CDBG and IDA. And so we would utilize those same contractors and would just follow our standard process that they're used to with that.
And so those contractors are typically do the work knowing that they will get paid by the city and they don't require the homeowner to pay up front.
Correct. And they
And-
know we're not going anywhere. So they'll
Right,
get paid.
right. How big is that pool of contractors? I'm thinking if somebody wants to use somebody outside of that pool.
I don't know currently the number. I know that we just did an outreach for our lead program and had a pretty good turnout of some additional contractors that we weren't currently registered. I think for our total contractors that are registered with the city, not just specifically for those programs, we have almost 800.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, thanks for this. This
Mhm.
is exciting to see it moving forward. Just a couple questions about the affordable housing rehab. I know some of the other programs that we have limitations on, whether things have to be external or internal,
Mhm.
that interior, that kind of thing. For these grants, does that apply? It can be interior, exterior, roofs, things like that, all of the above. Awesome. And then what Councilmember Crable raised about the paper application versus submitting online. What time are we talking about? Are we talking about the online stuff can go in at 12:01 a.m. on May 1st? And the paper stuff gets timestamped at opening of business? Is there any way to even that out? Because I could see people who really could use these grants also not having very fast internet service and, the capacity to, or even the knowledge sometimes to be able to do that.
Sure. I would say with the number of grants we'll be able to award for the affordable housing, I really wouldn't anticipate that there wouldn't be people that we aren't able to serve, even in other programs that we've done. Sometimes we might get a little bit of a waiting list, but generally that's due to restrictions that we have in ways that we're able to help individuals. So I do think even if anybody came at we open at our office opens at 7:30. So I think anybody that would come May 1st to the office at 7:30, they'd be pretty close to the front of the line.
And is May 1st the first day that you can actually see the application?
Yes.
I wish that it could be seen earlier so that people could pull their materials together and.
That's what's currently on the website. So it does
Okay.
outline what they'll need as far as the eligibility.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Bullen and then Walsh.
Thank you. This has been a long time coming. And from what I've seen, you've done a great job. Really appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I want to touch one thing on what was brought up on the timing. And that is, and it's a legitimate concern there. And even though, I mean, you're talking enough money, the odds of people getting in there at 12:01, yeah, you may have a few, at 12:05, that type of thing. But with I don't know how the deployment of making the link active for the application is going to go. If it's an automated feature to make that active, could that automation be set up to make it active at 7:30 a.m. instead of at midnight on May 1st? If the automation has the ability to do that type of thing.
Yeah, I think we could set them to go live when the
Okay.
office opens.
I think that would help alleviate some of the concerns is setting that automation like that it goes live later in the day. I've just been here perusing through the website on this stuff and fantastic. My hat goes off to the design and the amount of information and how the information is laid out in a very well thought out way. And too often you see with government bodies that people just throw websites together and they're really laid out very poorly and all that. And what you've done here with this site, especially for these grants and the community development, it's outstanding. It's really easy to follow. So thank you.
Councilmember Urban, I was gonna say that's a great note to end the presentation on, but
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for your presentation. Excuse me. So on the home rehabilitation, does this include all types of residences, for example, mobile homes or trailers?
Mhm.
And will that specifics be on the website as well?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
okay. That's a great note to end the presentation on.
And
Okay.
I will just add to that, if it's not owner occupied, there will have to be, waiver supplied by the property owner. So that is something that, we can work with tenants through, but we wanted to provide some opportunity for that as well for any rentals.
Thank you, Melissa.
So not as cool as a slide, but- do what we can in economic and community development.
Yep, great presentation. Thank you for all your work. The next item on the agenda is item 5D, a presentation and discussion on a draft Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan as requested by the Administration Department. And we'll start with City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and to the community. Tonight, we have two presentations that are going to be presented by our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager, Michael Hurt. As everyone may recall, this ADA transition plan has been something that's been in play for quite some time. Was first presented to council, I believe it was in December. And based on some of the comments, we had an opportunity, and I'll call it that, to come up with Transition Plan 2.0. So it's that presentation tonight. And again, really felt like we had an opportunity to expand our look, and very proud of the product that Michael's going to present tonight with the expectation based on council comments that this could be an action item for next week. Michael?
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor, and Council. We want to go over, as City Manager said, the 2.0 version of the ADA transition plan. We have included many of your suggestions and emails to me in this particular document, so we hope that it is to your liking. Let's go to the next slide, please. We're going to go, this is the transition plan overview. We're going to cover what is the ADA Title II requirements for the city of Bloomington, the purpose for the ADA plan, and also the elements that make up an ADA transition plan. Next slide, please. This, of course, is the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. It is a federal civil rights law. Prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities, and there are 5 titles to the ADA. So prohibition against discrimination when it comes to employment, public service, public access, telecommunications, and then there's a miscellaneous category that captures everyday activities. The ADA guarantees people with disabilities the same opportunities and access as individuals in the general public. Next slide, please. Title II of the ADA is specifically for the state and local government in terms of providing access. So this requires us, the city of Bloomington, to provide disabled individuals with equal access to all of our programs, activities, and services that are provided to the general public. In terms of the transition plan itself, it provides an audit of city facilities. We have created an evaluation document and did an evaluation on the city facilities, parks, playgrounds, and pools. And as this is a living document, we will continue as plans change, laws change, to make sure these are updated. Next slide, please. One of the main complaints about the former site was that the grievance procedure was very cumbersome. What we have done is to revamp that grievance procedure to make it as easy as possible for anybody to complete and to get some action on it on a much quicker scale. If we could go to the grievance procedure, please. So the previous grievance procedure was about 3 pages long. It had a very detailed process in terms of dates of submission, forms of submission, and staff members that would be involved in completing the process. If we click on the complaint form itself, and it takes a little while to load, you will see it's been reduced to a 1-pager. At the top of the grievance complaint form, you have the contact information from my office. All I need to do is capture the contact information for the grievant or the complainant who's filing the complaint. And we provided some checkoff boxes so that their particular complaint can be expedited to me. If it is not there in the checkoff boxes, there's plenty of spaces to go ahead and type in whatever the complaint is. If the individual chooses not to type anything into that form, doesn't matter. As long as I have the contact information, I will go ahead and contact them and we will complete the intake process together. Next slide, please. We're going into the transition plan elements. One of the main elements of this plan is to designate an individual to oversee ADA compliance. We have chosen that very good-looking guy up there to be our ADA coordinator, and I do consider it an honor. And this has been a passion of mine for a very long time. So more than happy to serve as the city's ADA coordinator in addition to my other duties. Next slide, please. Another part of the transition plan is to invite interested and concerned persons to participate by submitting comments on the plan. When we left the council in December, one of our marching orders included that we meet with the constituency who deal with disabled individuals, who were the advocates, the disabled individuals themselves, and we first put out an online accessibility survey. We didn't get a whole lot of traction on it, but our public meetings were pretty well attended. The government center meeting, the meeting at LifeSeal, I think was probably our best attended one. And it was the one to me that was the most informative, not particularly from the staff of LifeSeal itself, but the individuals with disabilities who attended had some very good suggestions for us. And we have put those into play also. Our last meeting was held in September at March 1st. And the plan that is currently on the website was sent to LifeSeal to get their final words on that. And we've also agreed to meet with one of the staff members on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. This is a snippet of what the evaluation form looks like. It'll be also on the website and anyone can view it. And what we hope to see is where there are X's on the form, that indicates that there is maybe an issue of noncompliance, or there is an issue, or there's some sort of barrier that prevents compliance totally. So this particular one, there are 4 of those priorities on the site. This one deals with restrooms in particular. So in terms of accessibility to this restroom, this particular building had no additional signage that indicated to an individual with a disability where they could find a disability enabled restroom. Next slide, please. Another part of the transition plan is to list the facilities with compliance issues and to provide a projected date of when those compliance issues will be addressed. The numbers indicated here are actual numbers that came from the directors of these departments of these particular buildings, indicating when the mitigation would occur for the non-compliance issues. Next slide, please. The 2010 ADA standards were the standards used To complete this assessment or these facility evaluations, the same 2010 standards are also used for the parks, playgrounds, garages, et cetera. They have very specific ones for parks and playgrounds, so we use those also. The 2010 standards for for existing facilities is the one that was used for our buildings. The assessments include photos, which are still being uploaded. We have an awful lot of them. And also there was a suggestion about disability awareness training for our staff. April 12th, we held a disability awareness training, a couple sessions, very well attended by our staff. The city of Bloomington is also has elected to become an autism inclusive employer, which we're very excited about. I have a son who's on the autism spectrum, so I'm particularly excited about it. Becoming an autism inclusive employer, we held trainings, which also included sensory inclusive venue training, held on March 21st and 22nd. Next slide, please. Let's go to the new Access site, and we're calling the site Access Bloomington. On the Access Bloomington site, you will be able to get into the transition plan itself. You'll find the grievance complaint form there. In the ADA transition plan, these are some of the things we have included based on the feedback we got from the disability advocates and the council people. Rewording and reordering language in the transition plan to emphasize that we are being an ADA compliant city because it's the right thing to do and not because we have to. Adding the most recent dollar figures to say the sidewalk program. Adding projected dates for remediation of ADA compliance issues, the number of public meetings that we held, shortening the grievance procedure, replacing the words citizen with the word residents. Thank you, sir. And incorporating ongoing staff training. ADA certification for directors. I am currently enrolled in the ADA certification program that's being provided by Great Lakes ADA in Chicago, Illinois. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I guarantee I'll be successful. And again, the use of the 2010 ADA existing facility standards were applied to all of our evaluations. And these evaluations included parks, playgrounds, and our golf courses. Right. Any questions?
Michael, thank you very much. Great work. I think I definitely very proud of the city taking this on and making our city more accessible, because I think we need to recognize that everyone has something to bring. And for many of us, a lot of times we can take things for granted. We don't always see things. And including folks from LifeSail and Mark First to really help to inform what we're trying to achieve, I think is very important. So definitely appreciate all your work with that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to council, and we'll start with Councilmember Crumpler, who we haven't heard from in a while. So, and then Councilmember Craybill, and then Councilmember Walsh.
Oh, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Michael. Exciting plan. One question, when I look at the page, that's the ADA Access Bloomington page, you have all the arena, BCPA, park, City Hall, all those listed, right?
Yes.
I think there is a park that I'm not sure if it was left off, Eagle View Park, which is in Ward 9.
Yeah, there are several parks that have been left off. We're still adding them.
Okay, great.
Didn't realize Bloomington had so many parks until we got started.
Yeah. And then a second question related to that. Earlier in the year, and I think I contacted you about this too via email. Both Fell Park and Bittner Park are capital projects this year. And I'm really hoping that there will be a possibility of providing ADA compliant playground equipment on both of those parks. And it could be a model, for this community that we're not just saying we're going to do something, but really doing something concrete. I wonder if you could comment on that possibility, please.
I do know that there are several members of the park district who have been certified in not just playground equipment, but also received some ADA certification that came along with that program. So we'll be working pretty closely together to make sure that not only the equipment is accessible, but also things like access from the parking lot to the playground. The sidewalk isn't broken up and it will interfere with wheelchairs and walkers, things of that nature. So we're going to take an overall view of that. And I got some dates that are in the document that came from the department directors. So those are the dates that we project to have those done.
Okay. And then finally, the self-evaluation, is that process completed? Have you collected all the data that you're planning to collect?
No, as we mentioned, we still got other parks we need to do.
Okay. And then not only other parks, but other facilities within the city as well?
Facilities that are accessed by the general public are the ones we did.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Cribble.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Michael. I appreciate all the work that you've put in this and continually trying to improve it. I believe you worked with LifeSil on this latest iteration. Is that right?
Yes.
And I know you mentioned in your presentation, you'll be working with them on a regular monthly basis. Great. Now, one of the things I just noticed, when I go into the transition plan online, I can link into the grievance document, but yeah, never mind. So I think the what was sent to us, the links didn't work. So I think that's fine. So on page 4, there's a summary of city responsibilities and it lists decisions made with regard to individuals, gender, race, ethnicity, et cetera. And I know it refers to other categories protected by local, state, or federal law. I don't know. I think there's possibly some additional ones that we could include outright. I know there's some in the human relations ordinance.
Yes.
And also in the EEOC, such as gender identity, for instance. So this is suggestive.
And actually, what we want to do is to make sure that that statement is consistent all across all of our documents. So yeah, those protected classes will be added.
Thank you. And then I just want to say, I really appreciate you going through that training. I think that'll level set things, and then you'll be able to share that with the other directors, employees of the city. So thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Walsh and then Boland.
Thank you. I say the same thing here I said on the last one. The website is awesome. It's absolutely amazing and what we do with our websites. And it's just and when I look at this particular site, the amount of data that's here and the amount of data that you and your team would have had to collect is just outstanding. And one question I do have, when I look at the on each individual location that you have in here, there's a checklist in here of all the different places. And I'm assuming that's something that would be updated from a visibility standpoint for the community that, I happen to be looking at the Creativity Center ADA evaluation. And let's say something is found with the public parking, would that be updated on here?
Absolutely. We're still calling this a living document.
Okay.
And we also too have an aging workforce. I think our average employee is about 45 here at the city. So both the facilities that we're all working in, it'll just be a living document until we make sure that accessibility is the order of the day for all of them.
Okay, but this is great. One comment to the IT team, look at the pictures on the webpage that are inserted in for all these. Some of them are sideways instead of up and down.
Yeah,
It's kind of funny looking at some doors like this.
We'll get that straightened out. We're kind of novices with uploading those, but we'll get them straightened out.
You take them one way and they don't go into the computer that way sometimes. So, but yeah, thank you for your hard work on this. It's fantastic.
Okay, Councilmember Boland.
Thank you for the hard work, and I agree, everything that's online is really great. One of your partners on this is Public Works, correct?
Correct.
I don't want to sound like one of the public commenters, but there are several sidewalks that have no ramp, much less an updated ramp. And gaps, total gaps, in residential neighborhoods that are supposed to have sidewalks, not ones that were designed and developed without. And I mean, it's not just for ADA, but it's for kids going to the school bus. There's a person in my neighborhood that is wheelchair bound that, likes to get around when the weather's nice. So is Public Works going around and checking all the sidewalks, or they're only doing it as they replace sidewalks on the streets?
Well, I know they're working on a schedule, an annual schedule they create. But what they've also been doing in situations like the one that you mentioned, if we get a phone call, there's an accessibility issue, like you said, a child can't get to his bus or whatever from his house from his house to the corner because of the condition of the sidewalk. I know that Public Works has gone out and expedited those.
Okay.
So if that is a situation, give us a call.
Okay. I'll get my Bloomington app out. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, no, Councilmember Ward.
I just want to say thank you for your work on this. This is close to my heart as well. This was actually one of the pushing, I'll say pushing the city to be accountable on this was one of my first council member initiatives back in 2021. And so I'm quite pleased to see this coming before us for a vote next week. And I look forward to being able to move that we approve it at that point. Two of my favorite parts of this, one has to do with the idea that that this is a living document and that it can be updated and can continue to grow. The last time we had a draft was before most of us anyway were part of this council or even part of city staff back in 2015, I believe. So, and that languished as a draft for all those years. So it's wonderful to have something that's not just a draft that's going to come before us next week. I love that. The other thing that I really appreciate about this plan, frankly, is the statement that you made earlier that this is not just being done because we have to do it. It's something we're committed to doing. So the language of the city of Bloomington is committed to promoting the quality of opportunity for all residents. I think that really bears repeating. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't include some of my partners who worked with me on this. Phil Medler hiding back there behind the screen. He's responsible for bringing my ideas to the paper and applying it to the website. He did a lot of work. And so we appreciate Phil for all of his hard work.
Well, thank you very much. And we are going to, did you have comments for regards? Okay. All right. So we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, and back by popular demand, Mr. Outstanding himself.
You're gonna get sick of this guy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And again, to the community, we're excited about this next presentation. This is an initiative. This is an expectation that we are as inclusive when it comes to diversity related to some of the city business. And this is an opportunity for us as an organization and a community. But this is one that we needed to step carefully, make sure that accurate information was out there amongst the many stakeholders in the community. And again, Michael Hurt And his team did that, met with many stakeholder groups to communicate that this was not something that was going to negatively impact. But it is a required step if this is something that's adopted by council next week. Michael?
All right, thank you, Tim. Yeah, the city of Bloomington recognizes that there is strength and diversity, and it can be a great benefit to our community. Just as we have worked on diversity and inclusion for our workforce, diversity and inclusion issues in terms of our ADA transition plan, we realized that there were other areas of the city that we also needed to apply this same attention. And to that end, we are proposing a diversity procurement initiative. And the purpose of this is to broaden opportunities for women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, disenfranchised businesses, women and minority workers to take part or participate in city-funded projects, to be vendors with the city, to grow our city base in terms of employees, and also our city base in terms of having other vendors and contractors grown here that we can hire or utilize on some of our programs and our projects that we have around the city. This proposal will help foster an environment that we think will be fair and equitable. It will be inclusive, and it'll create opportunity and outcomes and change conditions for disadvantaged people. Having said that, let's go to the first slide, please. The city administration, in conjunction with the legal department and the diversity and inclusion division, we collaborated to create a new proposal to our procurement process. To that end, again, we're proposing an equal opportunity contracting initiative. And the purpose of which is to, again, broaden opportunities for women and minorities to do business with the city. We have been very intentional about this project. We are kind of sort of the Johnny-come-latelys in terms of cities who have jumped on board and done this. I know that Peoria has had this initiative for over 30 years. So I'm really excited about Bloomington coming into the forefront and creating these same opportunities here in the city of Bloomington. We asked the question, why? Why are we doing this? The city, again, recognizes the strength and diversity and inclusivity. And this is in the best interest, we feel, the best interest of not only our residents, but also in the best interest of the city in terms of partnering locally with our individuals who want to become part of the city in terms of vendors or also workers on our particular projects. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what did this change for the city? Contracts that we let that are over $50,000 will contain a provision for prospective contractors to certify that they are committed to the tenets of equal opportunity and employment in contracting. We have created aspirational goals, and those goals are as follows. 8% of the total contract will be awarded to an MBE firm, and that is a minority business enterprise, a DBE firm, or a woman-owned business enterprise. And that is if subcontracting opportunities are made available. Also, 10% of the total hours worked on the project should be performed by minority workers and 2% by female workers. And these percentages we came up with based on the relevant labor pool information that we pulled from the census data of who was available in our area to do these particular jobs. Contract language will also be added that will include our human rights piece, our diversity and inclusion piece. Let's go to the next slide, please. As I stated before, this initiative is nothing new in terms of what we're used to in our area. Contractors, and we met with several. The city met with different prime contractors. We met with union representatives. We also met with local advocacy groups like the NAACP, who have particular interest in people who have been disenfranchised in some sort of way, being part of the participation for work on city-funded projects. We gave them an opportunity to not only make them aware of what our proposal was, but they also had an opportunity to have input on how they, what they saw that would be successful for us in this initiative. Excuse me. In fact, this diversity initiative has been ongoing in the cities that are listed there, Champaign, Peoria, and Decatur. And in fact, the constituencies that we met with in terms of the general contractors, no one stated a problem with the outlay at all. In fact, they said they appreciated the fact that our percentage numbers were more realistic than the surrounding cities and those offered by the state. The cities of Decatur, Peoria, and Springfield, they each have provisions for minority business subcontracts at 10%. They have the women business enterprise contracts at 5%. They all have 18% for the hours worked by minority workers and 3% worked by female workers. The only difference there is at Champaign, it's as high as 20% of the hours worked should be worked by minority workers, 15% by female workers. So ours in comparison is more, I think, more realistic. It helps the contractors to reach those goals as opposed to setting out a provision that would be very difficult to reach in this particular area. Next slide, please. By meeting the assigned percentages of the project, how can contractors meet the aspirational goals? Well, of course, if they meet the aspirational percentages, the projected dollar amounts for the project, and meet the utilization goals for subcontractors and female and minority workers. But in the event that the contractor cannot meet these goals, the entity may provide evidence of good faith efforts to meet that goal. And I will tell you that good faith efforts are the linchpin for this particular proposal. We need to work in partnership with our contractors, doing all we can to help them meet these goals. And by helping them meet the goals, we've also helped our residents who want to work on these projects or who want to do business with the city of Bloomington. Slide 6, please. Documentation must be included with the bid demonstrating good faith efforts. What we're asking for is that when a firm submits a bid for work on a city-funded project, we're asking up front that they provide us with a utilization plan, which tells us that they have met with individuals or they have met with minority firms or women-owned firms or disenfranchised firms to get a commitment to work with them on these projects. Of course, that commitment hinges on whether or not that contractor is awarded the contract. But we want to see this work done up front to show that the bid being submitted is not only a responsible bid, but is also a responsive bid to these new provisions that we've set out. The new utilization plan, we hope, will have line items that will state any monetary agreement that the prime contractor has reached with the subs or with the workers. We also would like to see the primes come out more at city-sponsored events like job fairs. These are networking opportunities where the contractors can get to meet with subs. They can get to meet with individuals who can work on these projects. And the city will be partnering with Heartland Community College and also the local Minority Business Development Center, as they both have programs that will turn out individuals who will be qualified to work on these programs, and also individuals who will be able to bid as a company, as a subcontractor on a lot of these projects. And what we're asking is that those contractors make every conscious effort on their own to diversify their workforce. Next slide, please. So again, the documentation must be included on the front end that demonstrates these good faith efforts. Part of that documentation is a certification that the contractor received an insufficient number of proposals or inquiries in response to their good faith efforts to pursue participation, to call around to the individuals on the database that we will provide for them. The database will have listed those individuals who are ready and able to work on these projects. These will be individuals who are owners of minority business enterprises, woman-owned business enterprises, and the disenfranchised business enterprises. The city will maintain a database which we will make available to all of the contractors in an effort to help them meet these goals. If for whatever reason the contractor is not able to meet the goals for hours worked on a project, the expectation is that they work very hard to at least get the workers involved on that project. Next slide, please. Are there exceptions to this ordinance and requirements for goals in construction? There are exceptions. Number one, if there is a contract that is from a joint purchase or a single source purchase or an emergency purchase where we haven't had time to get this process together. If companies do not subcontract, they're a small, maybe a mom and pop shop, and it's just 4 or 5 of them. The expectation is that not that they go out and hire other individuals to work on this project, not that they just create opportunities for subcontractors if it isn't necessary. What we do ask is, though, if number 4, number 5 of that 5-person family shop isn't available, then we would ask that when they go to the unions to look for workers on these particular projects, that they would ask for female or minority participation to help them meet the goals of their contract. Also, we have contracts that are grant funded, and we have to adhere to the provisions of that grant, and they may not allow for us to have the particular provisions that we would have normally. So in order to maintain the grant and be true to that grant, that is an exception. Again, we still expect the companies to make good faith efforts to meet workforce participation on these goals. Next slide, please. What will we do as a city to assist our contractors with helping them to meet our goals? Again, we will maintain a database of these entities, minority-owned, women-owned, or disenfranchised business entities. We will provide education and outreach to the vendors from the onset of the contract being awarded to the end of that contract. We will walk alongside them to help them in whatever way we can to reach those goals. We will develop forms, our sample forms, sexual harassment statements, whatever it is they need in order to meet our initial provisions of providing that paperwork up front. And again, city-sponsored networking events, when we have job fairs, things of that nature, informational workshops, these are opportunities for our prime contractors to meet individuals who can work on the projects and who can also be part of the workforce as a subcontractor. Next slide, please. All right, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Councilmember Ward. And Bolin. And Emig. And Cribble.
I guess I thank you for the presentation and the explanation. It's very helpful to have this hashed out. I guess the place that I find myself being sort of stuck at has to do with the decision to make the goals lower than other communities. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about why it is that we are in such a minority in terms of what seems realistic. Other communities, the ones Champaign, Decatur, Peoria, all seem to think that those goals are reasonable, and yet we don't. And I wonder why?
Well, there were a couple of reasons. Being this, it's our initial offering, first of all. Secondly, we looked at the census documents in terms of who we had in the area that were in the occupations of the trades who could actually do some of the work. Most of the listings, when they listed people out by race and gender, they were pretty low for us. So we didn't want to set a goal that was so high that it would be almost impossible or difficult for the general contractors to meet those goals.
And does the town of Normal have goals like this?
Actually, I didn't even study town of Normal, to be honest with you.
What's the thinking there, given that they are so close to us and presumably would have similar demographics?
I don't know. I don't remember seeing any information for Normal in terms of this particular program. So we pulled from the cities that were closest to us. And of course, a city like Peoria has a larger minority population. They have been involved, like I said, for the last 30-some years in this particular program. So they have grown their base in terms of subcontractors. They've grown their base in terms of minorities and women in the trades who can work on these projects. So we're working from the ground up trying to get there.
Okay.
Count,
you.
count, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mayor.
go
Could I
ahead.
just jump in to clarify? To be clear, we didn't set our numbers lower to try and be lower than those other communities. As Michael said, it was based on our local demographics, based on population and in terms of persons of different races and availability to work in these different areas, but also the availability of the types of companies that would work on construction jobs. So it wasn't, hey, we're going to be lower than these communities. We wouldn't do that. It was based on the realistic numbers of what exists here and realizing that we also have to work to build more companies here. And as part of the ordinance, it says that these numbers will be reevaluated, I think annually. And so it's something that we're going to reevaluate each and every year. But again, it was based on our local demographics, and each of the communities have different demographics.
Okay. I think next was Councilmember Bullen. Is that correct? Is that what I said earlier? Okay. Yeah, that's you, right? Donna Bullen?
I want to thank Deputy City Manager Tyus for explaining. He sort of addresses my question. I know that there's phrasing around bids that says lowest responsible contractor. So I am assuming that since said that again, there's not that many businesses locally that are minority. So I'm assuming that these companies that are going to be included in this would fit that same criteria. You know, if the original contractor is lowest responsible bidder, then I would assume that he's then going to reach out to the same responsible bidder in a minority group.
Yeah, that's why we mentioned being both the lowest responsible bidder, but also being a responsive bidder.
Okay.
Responsive to what we put out.
Okay.
And trying to do with this new initiative.
Okay. I must have missed that, but thanks.
Do you want to say something, Jeff?
No, and just to clarify, and to expand upon what Mr. Hurt said, so we will require, to be responsive, you will have to provide this information. But let's say, for example, they can, they've got subcontracting opportunities and they couldn't meet that percentage goal, then they would just need to simply say, well, I reached out to this person, but their bid was too high for me, so I didn't include them. That would be acceptable under this process. Or they could say, I've tried to find somebody, I've undertook good faith efforts, couldn't find somebody. They would still be a responsive bidder under this proposal.
And they couldn't simply say it, they have to show it in writing that I called company A, B, C, D, E. Company A said, I couldn't do it. I was working on another job. Company B's price was significantly higher than me using another company. So they can't just say it. They have to show what they've done, and we will be checking with these companies as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Craybill,
I think I was last, but
you were?
I was.
Okay. Well, we'll go with Councilmember Emig. Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm just going to confirm one of the questions you answered, Billy, and I think this is in the ordinance. I was going to ask if you would increase the percentages incrementally based on shifting demographics and or success of implementation.
Absolutely.
And that's clearly written into this. So that I would have welcomed and advocated for. So that's positive. I appreciate this is an intentional focus on making more deliberate efforts to expand contractors and diversify that workforce. My only question is how you plan to ensure that you're staffing this level of responsiveness or good faith effort. Strikes me that this is going to take a lot of time to review. And I just wondered what your plan is to make sure that it's being implemented properly.
Okay. Well, our division has 2 individuals in it. And I think between the 2 of us, we can maintain it. Unless we have some, I don't know, some bull year where we're doing 90 projects on once. But I think historically, from what I have done working in other cities in the same position, 2 people were good enough to handle it, were enough to handle it.
Okay, thank you. So Councilmember Craybill and then Becker.
Thank you. Again, I know that there was a lot of work put into this, just like the ADA transition plan. I know this has gone through the Human Relations Commission, correct?
Yes.
And they've had feedback, and it's been on their plate for a while. So I'm glad that we're seeing this now. I think it's good that we're intentional about these goals and that we're asking the people that do business with the city to be intentional as well. They're aspirational goals, and they provide benefits of list of contractors that meet the goal that can be used. We can track it, right?
Yes.
Which will be key. And we've got the experience of these other communities that we can rely on to see if what we have is working. I'm glad that you've talked to so many people. I was going to mention if you talking to the Minority Business Development Center, and I'm glad you said that because I know they opened an office here at Eastland Mall. So yeah, nothing but positive things to say about it. So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Becker.
So this is just a little bit of feedback from a small business owner that reached out to me today. So offering a concern on their part is that you talk about the ability for you and your staff to assess the commitment of someone to the process. They're not worried about you. They're worried about a prime contractor. This person's business is typically the subcontractor in their situation. They're worried that the prime contractors won't have the ability to assess and watch that aspirational. As the example, the small firm is about, what did he tell me? Just under 20% female. doesn't have a lot of minority employees, I think two. But have been trying to hire and just can't. And he's worried that because it is a, forgive the term, but a white male-owned business, he's automatically going to get dropped off the subcontractor list for some of these primes because they won't want to go through the process of validating him. They'll just automatically go, you're off my list. I'm going to call these other firms, even though he's done good work for them for 10 years. So there is that concern from some businesses. And I did
And
commit
this is
that I
a
would bring it
minority
up.
owned business, I'm sorry.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying is that person does their best to employ a diverse workforce. But because it's not a minority or woman or disenfranchised owner, they're worried that the prime contractors will just exclude them at this point. Because
So-
they don't have the ability to look at the, hey, you're doing the right things, trying to maintain this level of workforce. And he's also worried that the skill set needed on certain jobs, there's no way he could meet the percentages. And I know we've said the percentages are aspirational and if you're trying, but he's worried that the prime contractors will not give him credit for trying while they're reaching that goal. So I just wanted to share his comments because he asked me to.
So if I understand his concerns, it's that his company will not be hired because his company isn't diverse. Or an MBE, not is diverse or an MBE. Okay. So there's for one, the percentages of MBEs, DBEs, et cetera, is based on the availability, as I said. There's nothing that precludes primes from hiring non-MBEs in addition to the MBEs that they hire. And so my assumption would be that if this company that you're referencing does work that is necessary to the job that is being hired, and this company that you reference can do it in a way that is most efficient and cost-effective to the prime, et cetera, there's nothing that says the prime has to hire an MBE. So for example, if you and I are subs, I'm obviously a minority. I'm going to assume you're not, but I don't know. But and if you and I are both bidding as subs, and I'm a minority-owned company, and my price, for example, is 20 grand, and yours is 17 grand, this prime has the right to hire you. So what I'm saying is that in instances where a non-MBE, DB, et cetera, is a more cost-effective or more efficient or can do the job, whatever those qualifiers are, there's nothing that precludes the prime from hiring that company.
Can I also just add real quick, in the fact pattern you gave, the subcontractor, you said the subcontractor had done his best and has a diverse workforce. That would still count if they were hired as one of the subs on the project. Those minority employees would still count towards the other percentage of actually working on the project. So there would be some benefit there. And we specifically, that was a kind of a late change that we clarified to try and, encourage, that of the subcontractors as well. So just that would be something that a prime would see and would potentially be interested in.
Thank you. The explanation is mostly what I wanted to get out on the table. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes our questions. And Michael, again, thank you very much. Tonight was your night. Yes, but we'll bring you back at some other point. Thank you very much for all your work. We're gonna move on to the next item is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and to the community. I think I have 3 slides and then 2 additional comments. First slide, summer fun, the Parks and Recreation book for summer activities is now out, bloomingtonparks.org. And then Party for the Planet events all April long at Miller Park Zoo. Eric Veal, the director, earlier in his presentation on O'Neill Pool, talked about the expanded offering at the Miller Park Zoo and the fact that we are holding the admission fees for the community. Next slide, please. Prairie Vista, and Highland Park, the Den, all three city courses are open for the season. And they have definitely been well attended. And new hire slide, please. Welcome to the city. We have Rebecca with Public Safety Dispatcher, Marissa, Patron Services Manager with Arts and Entertainment. Spencer is lateral transfer with the Bloomington Police Department. Not sure where he came from, what department, I mean, he transferred from. Jim Curry is laborer with solid waste. Stephanie Stone is back to the city, serves as an office manager for Parks and Rec. And then we have Jace, another public safety dispatcher hire. The two additional comments, I know it was a night full of presentations, and I very much appreciate the attention, the enthusiasm by this council. And the appreciation that was showed to city staff on this. So thank you very much. Lastly, I wanted to announce something that press release went out at 5 o'clock this evening. Last week, I asked council for the permission and the support to add a second deputy city manager, and that was approved last week. I shared that I would be following this up with an announcement this week, and that's exactly what I am doing. I'm going to read my portion of the press release that went out at 5 o'clock. I just simply said, adding this position could have easily been justified when I began in 2018. And I said, I'm not sure that everyone realizes the true size and scope of this organization. However, I felt it was important to assess, then address the organization before making a decision at the highest level. The process to add a second deputy city manager started several months ago. The fact that Jeff was interested in taking this step up into a leadership role is exciting. It's Jeff Jurgens. Corporation Counsel is going to move into the deputy city manager role effective May 1st. He'll carry dual responsibilities for a couple of months until we hire corporation counsel replacement. And last week, I was asked by the media, what are you looking for in a deputy city manager? And I said, if I could clone deputy city manager Billy Tyus, that would be ideal. And I've come close, only Billy is a little bit taller than Jeff. That's about the only difference. But Jeff, Jeff is one of these people. He's obviously corporation counsel for the, for the organization, and highly regarded, respected, from a legal background. But he's somebody that carries the kind of respect within the organization, the relational skills that he has. He's very much been, even without the title and even without the knowledge of Billy and I having eyes on him for this eventual role, he really has been serving in this for quite some time. So I am very, very excited to announce that Jeff Jurgens is the new deputy city manager effective May 1st. And Mayor, if you would allow me, I wouldn't mind asking Jeff, you don't have to, but if you have any comments.
Please.
I'll keep them brief, under 20 minutes. No, I just thank you. It's an honor and very much appreciate it. It's hard to believe I've actually been sitting in this chair as corporate counsel for almost 10 years. And it's, the things I could, if I didn't have attorney-client privilege, the books I could probably write and the stories I could tell. But it's really been an honor serving in that position, and an honor to be asked to serve in this. And just very similar to Tim and Billy, I think those that know me, don't question my dedication to the city and that I love the city just like those two do. I care about the employees, care about the organization, and I'm very, very excited about working with both of them to get to this next level that the city manager wants to get to. So again, just thank you and look forward to working with all of you in this new capacity.
Congratulations. Awesome. Okay, And we are going to, I think we are moving to executive session, I think. So I'm going to ask at this moment for a motion to enter into executive
Excuse me.
session under section.
Sorry to interrupt. We're actually having an IT issue and we're unable to record outside of our Zoom meeting that is live. And so because of that, we're not going to be able to hold executive session. Oh,
Phil,
if we can just pause for a second, if you can,
messing everything up.
1 second.
I was almost out of my chair. Wow, Phil. We're having a conversation with you afterwards. Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion to enter into executive session under section 2C12 of 5 ILCS 120 to discuss a claim settlement, and under section 2C21 of 5 ILCS 120 to complete a semi-annual review of minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so moved by Councilmember Ward and second by Councilmember Bull. And I can do that just listening to the voices without looking at the people, that's a is entering into executive session per section 2C12 of 5 ILCS 120 to discuss a claim settlement, and per section 2C21 of 5 ILCS 120 to complete a semi-annual review of minutes. The room must be cleared during executive session. Council will resume the open session meeting following executive session. However, no additional action will be taken in open session except to adjourn regular session.
live yet.
5 seconds? Okay, can we have a motion to return to open session and adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay, moved by Councilmember Ward, second by Councilmember Emig. All those in favor signify by saying,
Mr. Meg, are we adjourning also? Or did you just say?
That was
restart?
my motion.
that's what I said.
Okay, all right. Can I do a roll call, please?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thanks. Councilmember Walsh. Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney. Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Becker. Councilmember Urban. Councilmember Ward.
Aye.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Okay, we are adjourned.